I started to explore prostate stimulation by just fingering myself. And then I had my first orgasm through fingering my prostate and jerking off at the same time. And it was like the most intense orgasm I've ever had, and was like, holy shit. No one told me. No one told me that you could stimulate your prostate and have like the most intense orgasm, and it's completely different.
Welcome to Sweet Release. Hi, Dan. Welcome.
Hi.
Welcome to Sweet Release.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
I'm really happy you're here. Today we're mostly talking about anal pleasure, but also just kind of destigmatizing the shame that a lot of straight males feel around exploring butt stuff. And really just who you are as a person, because I think that's really fascinating. So we're going to get into all of it today.
I'm very excited. I am basically the ambassador for straight men doing butt stuff. I say that jokingly, but I literally kind of realized that there is a huge need for straight men to speak about it more openly, because there is a stigma around it, as if having, sexual stimulation through your prostate, through your ass, is like associated with gay men exclusively, which it's really not. Like, there's so many stories that I've heard of straight men that are just like, no, I also love that, but they're not going to be public about it because there's the masculinity aspect. They're afraid of like having their masculinity be lessened because of that.
Mm-hmm. Are you the guy in the friend group that's always like, guys, this is what you got to do. Let me teach you.
Before I started doing OnlyFans, I was very shy about this topic. I've never been someone who's been very vocal or comfortable vocalizing my sexual exploration, my sexuality. Like everyone else, I felt like my entire upbringing, being an American kid growing up in the Midwest, it's like repress all of that and hide it away. God forbid you like talk about it.
Yeah,
and
hide it, brush it under the rug.
And especially being a straight man, it's like, no, you got to just always project masculinity, because that's, what it is. And as I've gotten older, and now I'm in my mid 30s, and I've realized, like, one, no one gives a shit. And two, you actually attract way more people that are willing to explore your sexuality together. You're willing to explore these fun, exciting new avenues of exploring sex and all the different aspects of that, if you're open about it and honest about what you enjoy and what you don't enjoy, even if you're afraid that that'll affect, some women might be like, oh, I'm not into guys that are like into that because I only like masculine men or whatever, and you realize it's like, that's fine. Like, that's totally cool too. But there are so many more women out there that are going to be more receptive to someone who's that open and honest about it, because it shows confidence in their sexuality, where women can feel more comfortable exploring their sexuality with them together, is what I feel, right?
Yeah,
from at least my experience.
Vulnerability too. I mean, vulnerability is sexy for a lot of women.
Yeah.
The majority of people in general, it's just something you can connect on and feel comfortable in being yourself, like you said.
Yeah, I am in an interesting position where I never had a lot of success with women early on in my life. And I think that's because I looked so young for my age. I'm 36 years old. I mean, it's blessed. I'm very fortunate now to look so much younger than I actually am. But that worked the opposite when I was younger. And so now I'm kind of like feeling happy and fortunate. But at the time, I struggled a lot to attract women, I felt like.
So how did you first start exploring your sexuality, or just like sex in general? Was it, you said in the Midwest, it was tough. Like, did you deal with some shame? And
yeah, I think I didn't start exploring until I got out to California. I moved to California when I was about 15 years old, and had my formative years of growing and developing as a man in Los Angeles, growing up as a child actor. So as you can imagine, that's a very interesting, weird, unique experience that a lot of people can't necessarily relate to. But, I, for the most part, had a normal childhood. I just happened to be going to auditions and going to classes like at the community college as opposed to like going to a high school. Like I never went to a high school. So I never had the high school sexual exploration phase. So, but I did get to explore at parties and in my own community, but I just wasn't, I don't know. I didn't feel like I didn't have the Riz, as the kids say now, I didn't have that X factor at the time. So I felt like I didn't start exploring until really after I did this Disney Channel show and had my first long-term girlfriend whose parents live right next door, which is the weirdest part. I pulled up like, wait a minute. So there's a weird full circle as to coming back here to talk about
this,
my sexual exploration. Yeah.
So she brought it out of you, or did you kind of just feel comfortable being together to explore?
It was my first real love relationship where we got to explore love together and explore our sexuality together, which looking back was very cut and dry and vanilla and new and wasn't exactly like a spark of fire like I've started to experience more in my older years, and which is natural, right? Your first long term. Yeah. Everyone's just like still as awkward as you can imagine. Yeah, exactly.
So did you, when did you start exploring butt stuff?
Yes.
Like, was that with a relationship? Was it with yourself? Like, how did it all?
Okay. So here's how it really happened. Okay. And this is weird for me to talk about. I've never talked about this in a public forum before. And in fact, I have to, ground myself to actually tell an honest answer about this. So I have always been a fan of cartoons growing up. It's been a huge part of my life. And I'm sure lots of other young males' lives out there. Cartoons, specifically, the first time I ever masturbated and actually had an orgasm was from humping my bed while playing Final Fantasy VII. This is a weird sentence that just came out of my mouth in public.
I fully support it. Is that a game?
Tifa Lockhart is a female character in a game series called Final Fantasy VII. It's one of the most popular game series of all time. There's a love story involved in the video game as you're playing through. And you basically get to decide whether you want to fall in love with Eris, which is the sweet, gentle, main love interest in the story, or this side character, Tifa, who has big tits and is like the rugged, more tomboyish kind of best friend character. And then so there's this love dynamic to this game that as a young, kid in 12 years old who's playing video games for the first time and exploring this for the first time, maybe I was younger than that, 9, 10. Mm-hmm. So there's these things that introduce. So I got exposed to this interesting sexuality exploration thing as a very young child with these video games. So that's always been a part of it. So as I started to grow, mature, do porn exploration on my own, because the internet came into we were able to look up pictures and print nude photos on the internet that took literally, an hour and a half to download one photo and print it out. But we had printed photos of like titties and we were like so excited. So anyway, but a part of that was Japanese animation would do what's called hentai, which is, pornographic material featuring Japanese animation characters. So as a part of that, there's a niche in Japanese hentai called futanari, which is basically girls with dicks. And for some reason, fell into that rabbit hole and explored that. And there was something attractive about that to me. This crossover of masculine, feminine energy, really spoke to me. And as I'm looking back, so I dove into that side and there was I was very interested in that content and searched it out and masturbated to it a lot. As part of that is the male characters being dominated by these, female characters with dicks and all sorts of aspects of that. So I had a lot of sexual energy attraction to that. And as I've gotten older, I've learned that I am equal parts masculine and feminine energy as a male, which is a really interesting thing to juggle. In terms of like, how do I still maintain this, like my sense of masculinity while still opening myself up to that, that passive energy, that being dominated energy that's still there. And as I've gotten deeper into the lifestyle world, the BDSM scene, all these other things that I'm now able to explore, I'm realizing that like I am not alone. I'm not like special. I'm not different. There's so many straight men that have the exact same feelings as me. So anyway, I started to explore prostate stimulation by just fingering myself. And then I had my first orgasm through fingering my prostate and jerking off at the same time. And it was like the most intense orgasm I've ever had, and was like, holy shit. No one told me. No one told me that you could stimulate your prostate and have like the most intense orgasm. And it's completely different than any orgasm I've had before. And that was just like, obviously at that point, you have to add it into your sexual
routine.
Yeah. You got to add it in to spice it up. There's this new way to feel an orgasm that's as intense as anything I've ever felt. So that was, long story short, that's how I started to explore it, and how I'm comfortable now talking about it and putting it out in my content. As obviously I do OnlyFans content, and as a straight man, I'm marketing to men because women don't subscribe to OnlyFans. Mm-hmm. Some do. Okay. There's a handful of women that subscribe to me. Very few.
Yeah.
Okay. That's just the nature of the game. So I had to market to gay men. And this is a side of me that gay men are very attracted to. The fact that there's a straight man that's open to expressing and putting out the kind of content that they would like. Obviously, they really wish it was having sex with men, but I'm not gay, so I don't do that. But I push my boundaries as far as I can go to give them the content that will still, they'll be like, well, it's not having sex with men, but it's damn close and good enough for me. So that's kind of how that progressed.
Do you ever shoot with partners, or is it mostly solo content for your OnlyFans? Just out of curiosity.
For the first year, I just created solo content. And then when I was single, I started connecting with trans performers and started working with trans performers, because obviously with my exploration of futa hentai led me to starting to explore, hooking up with trans women, because that is a natural kind of like synergistic aspect that was also very stigmatized, right? There's not a lot of straight men there that are open about being attracted to trans women and having sex with trans women as a straight man is very stigmatized, right? Is very, once again, like emasculated in the general sense of what the public kind of puts out there. And once again, I am hoping to kind of just put it out in the world that, it was terrifying to put that content out in the world and just be like, fuck it. I don't care. When you start doing OnlyFans content, you really have to accept that everyone in your life that you care about, that you love, is going to find out that you do porn for a living, one. And two, they're going to know every aspect of what kind of porn you do, because it's the whole aspect of OnlyFans. The whole job is marketing it. And if no one knows about it, then you're not going to make any money. So you have to be comfortable in pushing your content out there and promoting it. And the fact that I had sex with trans women was something that was like newsworthy for a lot of people. Like, wow, this Dan is having sex with trans women on his OnlyFans as a straight man. That's crazy, right? And now I'm in a position where it's not that crazy to me.
Yeah, it is.
But I guess for most people that aren't exposed to it or have some sort of still in their heads a stigma against it, like, whoa, he's like open about it and honest about it. And the scariest part of the whole thing was I wasn't scared about my parents finding out, or, the media finding out, or what would they say, or what would the comments be like on my Twitter, Instagram, honestly, I love the buzz and feeding excitement, but I've definitely gotten to a point where like, I don't give a shit what people think about, I'm not hurting anybody. I'm just, doing my life, and people are definitely not going to agree with everything. But what I was most concerned about was, am I still going to be able to find a partner that is accepting and open to everything that I've put out there? How many women that I have to go on a first date with, and how do you lead with that?
Yeah.
And you have to lead with it, because otherwise you're kind of being an asshole to women if you're not like, hey, by the way, I have this whole layer of things that you have to be able to be accepting of. This is who I am. Obviously I don't have to throw it all on them at once, but I was very lucky and fortunate to find someone very special that was like, the first thing she said to me when we went on our date, my girlfriend now, my longtime girlfriend now. And she was like, by the way, I know about your OnlyFans. I think it's cool. I have an OnlyFans too. Not a big deal. And I was like, oh my God, amazing. I just hit this plant.
It's okay. She's happy.
Is she okay? I'm sorry.
So yeah, what was it like, or how do you even share that to people that you date, or to your partner? Is it just kind of, because I've had some listeners that feel discomfort in talking about anal pleasure specifically. I mean, I know your OnlyFans and all of that is a little bit different, but how would you recommend people like open up and share that part of them, or how did you move through the shame and kind of be more communicative about it?
I think you don't have to lay it all on them at once. And I think it's something that I was definitely open to. One, I don't need that all the time, right? It's something that was a part of my single male sexual exploration, because when you're single, you can just kind of, you get bored with one thing, and porn, and you're obviously like, porn is your main aspect for me personally of how I was able to have sexual satisfaction. To be honest, I also was having pretty toxic, like unhealthy sexual practices of hooking up with lots of people, kind of in the hookup culture. And I think there was definitely element of like a sexual addiction to these like one-off hookups. And it was all about, there was a thrill in searching for a partner for these one-off hookups that felt risque, or like I was doing something wrong. I definitely felt guilt every time I would like find someone and we'd both be in this like sexual like thirst mode, and we would just get together and satisfy that sexual thing. And as soon as we were done, we both probably were like, that was just us like, exercising this. So I definitely feel like I was lucky that I was able to take that energy and transfer it into a money-making venture of OnlyFans, and how I was able to kind of justify this. But at the same time, looking back, I feel like I definitely had the wrong way to go about it. So now that I'm in a relationship, my life has been infinitely better, especially with someone who is so open, so like honestly, well, more versed in their sexual comfort, and they have explored for them. They're specifically in the lifestyle scene. So I'm a bit fortunate, whereas like anything that I would bring up in terms of anal play or these other aspects of kink that I was into, she was like, oh, honey, that's adorable. But you have no idea what I've seen. Right. So it's like, I'm not exactly the best person to talk about that specifically. But if I did meet someone, just hypothetically, if I met was in a new relationship with someone who was even newer to me, I would definitely come at it in a way that was slower, that didn't pile it all on at once, but just slowly brought them in to like, what do you think about this? Like, I think that's hot when someone does that. Like, do you think that's hot? Like kind of gauging what they think is hot, what they think is not, and like what is sexy to them. And then find where there's just like things there, like there's lots of space in between like what I think is hot, what they think are hot. And if there is a big gap, then you can kind of formulate a plan and strategy if it's very important to you about introducing why it's important to you, and if you can meet in the middle ground to both satisfy your needs, but also not put them in a way where it's like, I need to have this or else we're done. And I think every relationship's different, but you have to kind of decide what you're willing to like give on in terms of your needs to meet with someone in the middle of their needs, and how both parties are happy, comfortable, and enthusiastically consenting to what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And in lifestyle, we talk about enthusiastic consent. Like when you're going to a sex party and you're having sex with multiple partners, you really look for enthusiastic consent. So I think trying to work with your partner to find where you meet in the middle and where there's space, and then being willing to kind of adjust yourself as much as you feel is reasonable because you love that person. And I think specifically my girlfriend now was in lifestyle before we met. And so she has had to adjust and rein back how deep she goes in her lifestyle exploration, which was much deeper than I was comfortable with at first, knowing that it will affect me. But at the same time, I also don't want her to not be herself. So we've really had to do this dance of exploring our each person's comfort level. And that all comes to communication, which I'm sure you can relate is like the most important thing as you're exploring sexual, your sexual nature together with another person.
Yeah, it's so important. And all of that was perfect. I totally agree. I feel like it's sometimes scary. A lot of people have fear and shame around talking about just the vulnerable parts of them and sex in general. And so the more that we can just be more comfortable and normalize it and open up. And like you said, I always say baby steps. And I think just going slow is so important. And yeah, finding that place where you can like overlap is crucial. So I just think everything you said was great. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think that's perfect. You talked like a little bit about kinks. So what kind of kinks are you into? I mean, I guess you've kind of said some already, or toys or favorite toys that you like to play with, if you're comfortable sharing.
Yeah. So the tool of the trade that I use more than any other is a Fleshlight. When you're creating solo content, there's only so much you can just jerk off with your hand and have it be, a fun experience for you and for everyone else involved. So there's all sorts of different toys that I've been exploring, and mainly I've never been a big toy guy before this. I guess it's one of those things that if you don't know, you don't know. You don't like, if you've never had experience or someone hasn't showed you, or, you don't just go buy a bunch of sex toys for no reason. Well, maybe some people do. I don't know. I didn't personally. I was comfortable and just be like, oh, I'm satisfied with what I have. But as I've gotten to do more OnlyFans work, and of course needed to constantly create new content every single day, what really helps is to start exploring the options in terms of toys. I think there's a Fleshlight, and then there's also these holders for a Fleshlight. It's basically like a big thing with a slot that you put a Fleshlight into that you can actually like grab onto, hold on to, lean over. Like there's a couple different positions for Fleshlight. So you can actually, a Fleshlight for me did not work by just like jerking off my dick with a Fleshlight. Like for me, I didn't really do anything. I'm one of those people that needs to put my full body and like strain my muscles and feel like the contraction of my muscles to be able to help bring myself to orgasm. One, when I'm having sex, but also when I'm at home doing it on my own. So this was a great tool to be able to utilize to put yourself in a sex position and have sex using a toy while watching your favorite porn or whatever. But yeah, so the Fleshlight was like a great awakening for me. And I'm sure plenty of people know about it, but the holders and there's all sorts of different versions online. So definitely go and just like explore the different options. But there's like a doggy style one. There's a missionary one. There's all sorts of different holders. But I think that's the biggest game changer for me. Prostate massagers was, as someone who likes anal stimulation, a big, incredible new tool that I was like, yes, oh my God, yes. I actually, once again, you have to be more comfortable and open, but starting to use dildos and like doing anal stimulation with toys takes it to a whole nother level. My girlfriend and I create content together. And pegging is something that like didn't know I'd be into, but now looking back and putting all the pieces together, like getting pegged is something I'm really into. Right. So, and I'm fortunate enough that my girlfriend is really into, she is also a switch, which means she's basically also equal parts dominant and passive energy together. So she likes switching around too, her roles. And so she's been having a lot of fun using a strap on and like pegging me. And like, she's been having a lot of fun exploring that side. So we both have just like, it's just like a perfect match. But it's, if that's something you're into, definitely what I would do is like kind of gauge their interest in switching roles. Just for fun to try it out. Right. Like, but for the most part, I think like everyone could probably have a little fun changing it up with the roles.
It's a role play in a way, but it's also just exploring your sexuality, exploring yourself. And yeah, putting on a strap on is fun. It's empowering.
Yeah.
So I can relate. I'm similar. Well, I don't know if this is similar, but I had a bit of a late kind of awakening to anal pleasure. I did fuck a guy with a strap on first before fucking a woman. And that experience kind of scared me because he like exploded like shit all over me. And it was at this like dungeon BDSM club. So it was like kind of
he broke the first rule.
And what's the first rule?
Always clean.
Yeah.
Always clean.
Okay. So do you always clean?
Of course.
I guess
you only have to have one experience where you're like, oh, I see why they do this now. That was horrible.
I always promote like, it's okay if it like things get a little bit messy, but just like be mindful of like what you're eating that day and like try.
That's just inconsiderate.
Okay. So you say that you should always clean.
Of course.
Okay.
It's like just basic hygiene of like, you know what's happening, right? We know where this is going. So the least thing you could like, the least you could do is make sure that you've cleaned it out right before. Usually, like if I'm going to a sex party and I know I'm going to get pegged or something, I will definitely bring my tools that allow me to flush out, the shit. So it's like, okay, my booty hole's clean. My booty hole's clean. So I know that I'm not going to like spray shit all over someone who's pegging me. Cause like, Jesus, there's no better way to just absolutely ruin a sexual experience.
It did ruin it for me for a while.
Yeah, probably. I can't believe you actually dove back in after that.
Well, I never went back to a man's butt. So okay. I think I'm working my way there.
This is messed up. Now this is ruined males' butts.
No, I'm dipping my toes. We'll see. I mean, I've done a lot since then, but yeah, it's definitely, it scarred me. It did.
Well, now you know to ask like, hey, have you cleaned out? And if not, you need to go clean out right now. And then once you clean out, then we're good, but those are the conversations that are weird, that you feel like could ruin the fun, exciting flow state that you're in when you're having these sexual experiences. But my God, the other side of it is so much worse, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You have to talk about it for sure. Even if it's weird. I mean, I still feel, even doing this podcast, like the lights and all the cameras, like I still get nervous. I'm still like sweating, but it's like, you have to push through that. I'm doing so much good. And so even in a relationship, if you're ever worried about something, you just have to bring it up. And so and I
think we all build it up more in our heads, like every single person, no matter what the topic is, you're in your head, it's going to be a much bigger deal than when you have the conversation or you talk about it or it happens. It's way not as big a deal when it actually happens, right?
It is all in the head. That is so true. What else did I want to ask you? I would love to know, I guess, before we wrap up, I do want to talk about like sweet release moments. That last time you had that sweet release, which is like an orgasm. I like to talk about that towards the end of my episodes.
Since we're talking about butt stuff, mainly, I'll talk about my last really exciting experience getting pegged by my girlfriend. It was at a big sex party, and I was nervous because we had this plan that she was going to use a strap on and peg me, and like in a sex party like environment, which is really exciting and really fun, but also like I'm nervous because like, just like we talked about, like, what if something happens? Like, what if I didn't clean out as much? And like, now I'm, there's a lot of other scary things that come along with doing anal play at a sex party that I'm sure the most well-versed people are like, not that big a deal, right? It happens
well, that's
or whatever.
not something I've ever done at sex parties either. Like, it's something that I hold true and sacred, I guess, a little bit. Like, I had a guest on recently and she was like, kissing to me is the most, like, the highest form of intimacy. And I was like, interesting. Like, I kiss everybody. I kiss my girlfriends. Like, to me, that's not intimate, but anal pleasure for me is like something that I hold true for relationships.
Which does make sense because there is a certain amount of extra vulnerability with
I think that's what it
exploring
is. It just
that.
Feels vulnerable. And
I'm also someone who's like, kissing is a little bit more intimate for me than other people. So I do hold that. Like, I wouldn't just like make out with people, even if we were in a sexual like experience necessarily, right? Like, I would probably with more people I'm like closer to or whatever. But if I'm exploring with someone kind of in a like back when I was single, I definitely would not like try and make out with people that I knew was just like we're just having sex for fun and then like gonna vanish from each other's lives immediately after. I'd feel worse if I was like passionately making out with them and then do it. Like, there's something anyway. But yeah, so it's interesting how people have different things that they hold more sacred and more intimate, that they keep more reserved for their special partner.
But back to anal pleasure at a sex party.
Not
something I would do, but
so
maybe one day
we had the decision. Like, I was ready to be like, let's do this, babe. Like, this is gonna be fun. I'm like really into it. But then my girlfriend like tells someone like, hey, we're gonna go do this, and then like this lady like yelled throughout the party like, she's gonna peg Dan, everybody come watch. And I just like, my face dropped. I was like, oh Jesus, now there's so much pressure involved. But at the same time, you know what, I was born for this. So I was like, oh, stop telling everyone. But then I was like, you know what, no, fuck it, let's create a show here. Because it's also not something that a lot of people had been exposed to. There wasn't a lot of female pegging males at these parties that have happened. So this was like a thing for more than just me. It was like more people were like, oh, I want to see this. Holy shit. So yeah, there was not much room for us in the big sex pile. So we found our own little spot in the middle. And it took me a long time. And one of my friends at one point, we're like into it. And she's my poor girlfriend is like getting tired, right? Because it's hard to like perform and have an orgasm with all these people watching, and there's a lot of pressure, and also you got to perform. And I'm doing it while getting pegged. And my poor girlfriend is just like, oh my god, like exhausted. Right? Her like thrusting sex muscles haven't been quite as developed as mine over the years. And I was like, yeah, it's not so easy. It is
not so easy.
Okay, now you understand.
Is she like stroking you as she's thrusting, or is that something?
A little bit. Yeah. Mainly it's me stroking myself, but because poor girl, like she's got plenty to focus on when she's pegging that's new for her, and she's like working on that and focusing on that. But she was doing amazing. But my friend like was like, Dan, hurry up. Like, you gonna come yet or what? But anyway, I made it. I did it. And it was like this huge, amazing orgasm. And everyone at the party was like clapping, like golf clapping, like wonderful job. And I was just like, yeah, I did it. And then I'm just covered in cum, like laying on my back, was like, where am I? What? This is my life. But no, it was like a great time and a great story. And those are the moments that I'm like excited to keep exploring. And you know, there's all these things in my head that I built up, like, what if this happens? Like, what would it be like? And really, in reality, what I've learned from people that are more versed in like exploring sex parties and exploring their sexual nature with more kink play or trying more things, what I loved and found interesting about it was the playfulness of it all. And when you're a single guy that's never been invited, or it's a secret world, right? You kind of have to have an in to get into these kind of parties and know these people. But I was struck by how in the movies and television, it's really serious. Sex things are really serious and sexy. And it's like, but in reality, it's just a bunch of people being playful and cracking jokes and having fun. And then, yes, like exploring, you know, switching partners and doing all these other things. You know, lots of tied up and spanking, all sorts of these other kinks, you know, getting in a cage and, you know, sucking off multiple people in a cage or whatever it is. Right. But I was struck by like, it's not that serious. People are just playing and having fun. And I loved that. I was like, that made me feel so much better and more comfortable. And I think it's that way for a lot of people.
Yeah, I always love calling sex parties play parties, or even having date nights like playtime, you know, because to me, I feel very similarly. Like it's playtime. It's why wouldn't you want to have fun? Like, why don't you want to, like, it's like going out with your friends, but maybe you end up naked in a pile of bodies together. Like, why not?
Why not?
Yeah. So of course everyone's on different spectrums of that, but it's nice finding a community of people that like to do that too.
Yeah. It's really fun. And it's something that someone in my mid 20s, early 20s, that I was like, you always hope that happens, but no one is comfortable or versed enough to make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something in my mid 30s now, I'm like able to actually have these experiences. And it's as fun and awesome as I dreamed about it being in my 20s.
Amazing.
Which has been super fun. I'm definitely peaking as a human being in terms of just not giving a fuck, and also having the most fun and finding other like-minded people who reject this stereotypical life has to be about finding one partner and you stay with them forever and you have sex with them no matter what, or you end up not having sex because of, you know, you've had sex the same way for 27 years
and
you're just like, okay, this is it forever. And that's not like, I found a community of people that are pushing back against that. And I think also the world is so connected and people seem to be, you know, in the days of the age of OnlyFans, people are much more open to exploring their sexual nature and pushing the boundaries of what is standard, what is, you know, what is normal.
Yeah. And normalizing all of those taboo subjects.
Absolutely.
Which is one of my main goals.
And this is awesome. I'm super happy that you're doing this. And I'm super happy that I was able to sit down with you and have conversations about these things that, man, you can't normally do. There's not a forum for it, basically, for a lot of people. So I'm really happy that you're creating content and amazing art that allows people to get exposed to this stuff if their little community bubble doesn't allow them to experience it. It's amazing.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I did want to ask you another thing. Do you feel like when you're doing, you know, you're a content creator, you're an OnlyFans actor, and even you like to go to sex parties and all that, do you feel like you're always putting on a show? Like, have you learned that you're kind of an exhibitionist, or do you feel like that you're kind of exploring your body still and learning new things about you by opening up? Or
yes, I'm definitely always learning new things. I definitely feel like there's a lot of things that I do because other people are into them, and I haven't really fully gotten to the place where it's like, oh, it's cool for me, but it's not something that really does it for me or whatever, which is fine. I'm like, I'm really happy because I'm touching on all these different things, and I've really opened my mind to be like, you don't know if you're going to really enjoy something until you try it. So I've definitely been in this exploration phase, which has been great. So I'm starting to really find what I like and what I don't like. And that's really important as you grow into your sexual maturity, because you need to be able to communicate that with your partners, or find stuff to explore together, or find things that you really like and go deeper into that world. I like getting tied up. I learned I'm a rope bunny. So I've been exposed to shibari, and I've been suspended before.
Oh, wow. Nice.
And so that was an amazing experience, but I had no idea that was something I'd be into or what it would feel like. And you kind of have to just let go and fully allow someone to have full control over you. You really lose control over your body, and you're tied up and you're hanging and you're like, there's nothing I can do. So they either let me down or I'm stuck here. Right. Then that like, there's freedom in that. I guess I even like your whole life, you have to be responsible. Everything you have to like make sure you got everything done. You got to do the dishes. Like there's all these responsibilities in your whole life that everyone's relying on you to get your things done, whether that's your job or your home life or whatever. Even just having a partner, they're just going to expect you to, pay attention to them at some point. So like there's pressure in every aspect of your life. And when you're tied up, hanging and suspended, they're literally the entire world vanishes. There's no responsibilities because you can't do anything. And there's something so freeing in that for me. And so, yeah, but there's also this side of it that's like, it's also my job to create sexual content every day. And guess what? I don't want to jerk off every day. There's literally at points where I complain about having too much sex, which boo-hoo. Oh my gosh. I feel so sorry for myself. I have to have so much sex.
Well, you have to find that balance. How do you find the balance?
It's sometimes just, especially when you're creating content with your partner, going like, this is for us. Like we don't have to film everything. And I did feel this guilt. Like there's this weird guilt when you're an OnlyFans creator, especially as a solo male. Every time I jerked off and I didn't film it, I felt bad. I felt like, I could have made money on that. Like
$1,000.
Damn it. God, I can't be like jerking off. And every cum shot is valuable. I can only cum so many times a week.
True.
Like literally. So there actually is like an opportunity cost associated with me jerking off just for myself, which is weird. It's a weird guilt to feel, but definitely there's a point where you're just like, look, you got to take care of yourself first. And there's definitely times where it's just like, no, this sex is for us. This is not for anyone else. And then there's times where we try and like pre-plan out things a little more, like a day ahead.
Schedule. Like,
hey, I want to do a pegging video tomorrow. Let's do this. And then our sexuality, our sexual, relationship is more sporadic and feel and like just relying on spur of the moment. Sexual things. And so now that that's kind of been worked out, I definitely feel better about, it's easier to separate the work and sex life because the work stuff is a little bit more planned out. Mm-hmm. And the sex life for us is a little bit more like just what feels right, what's normal in a normal relationship. So I am able to kind of separate those worlds.
Yeah, it is important to do that. I always thought, I contemplated going into, I guess sex working. I remember going to even like an interview years and years ago, and there were all these rooms, and I was telling her about how I like to go to sex parties, and I was like, yeah, I went home with a woman for the first time a couple years ago, and so now I'm like dating couples and all these things. And she's like, you just would be perfect. And I was like, I don't know. Like I'm looking around this space and I'm like, I don't know if I could come here and like shoot. And it was more like camming, I think.
Yeah.
So like you don't have your own schedule. You're just meant to be there for certain hours. And it was just, I guess I like to listen to my body. So if something doesn't feel right for me, I'm like, you know what, that just didn't sit right.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to do that. But I do feel like we're all so different, and there's so many ways to find that balance and find, like you said, you're a very sexual human being. And so why not work and make a good living? And you guys crush it.
Thank you.
How much, I don't know if you're comfortable sharing, but like, how much do you make or how much can you make on like a video or on subscription content per month? I mean, and maybe you do a bunch of different avenues, but
Yeah. So it's interesting when you start doing OnlyFans, it is a business and you have to run it that way. A lot of people just like, oh, I'll start up a page and I'm hot. So I'll just start put nudes out there and I'm going to get people following me because I'm hot. But the reality is like the market is so saturated. Like everyone has an OnlyFans, right? If that's just like kind of the nature of today. So it's just like kind of how live streaming was or live streaming is now. It's like everyone wants to be a content creator, live streamer, especially in the gaming space. Like, oh, I love playing video games. I'd love to just like stream myself playing video games all day. Until you look at the reality of what it takes to become a streamer full time, which is streaming for 8 to 11 hours a day, every single day, to 3 or 4 people for the first couple years, enough to get a community put together. And then you have to nurture that community. So in the same way, creating an OnlyFans and being successful with the OnlyFans business is the same way. You have to basically have full time to be able to create content all day or stream yourself on a platform to be able to thirst trap. Basically, the whole job is thirst trapping, which, you know, there's all sorts of moral arguments we can have about is thirst trapping. You know, someone commented on my thing the other day. It's like, what value do you create for society? Like this is like terrible. And it's like, you know, you got a point. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know. I don't owe you shit. You know, I worked hard my entire life to build it to the point where I could create a business from this. And also they don't understand all of the stuff that goes behind the scenes to build a business like that. And it's basically 10% creating the content and 90% marketing it every single day in creative ways, whether that's live streaming on cam sites, whether that's doing a live stream where you create some other content, but happens to showcase your best aspects of people, where they build a parasocial relationship with you and want to explore their sexual nature with you. Basically, you can basically count. If I had advice for someone who's starting an OnlyFans today, I would say you need to give away your content for free, and it's got to be good. You got to be hot. You got to be in shape. You got to be like, or you have to find your niche. What is your niche, right? There's people they like heavyweight people. There's people who like they like feet content. There's people that like, you know, so there's things that like, okay, if you want to be, okay, let's just say that like, okay, I don't have anything special about me, but I want to create foot content. Like I love feet content as well. I want to create content for that. It's like, okay, well, the people that I've talked to that create feet content, the stuff that does the best are like when they're like sticking their feet in pudding and doing all these fun, crazy, exciting things with your feet involved, but like is way out of the box. And so you have to find
unique.
You have to find what makes you unique, but you have to create that content every single day and you have to put it out there. My suggestion was, I didn't know this when I started, but on Twitter allows porn.
Yeah.
And there's a huge community of people who love consuming porn content on Twitter. So I would definitely, if I started over again, that would be the first thing I do is build a Twitter, put out good content, put it on other creators that have similar type of content. I would go and engage with those content creators, put my content in those threads and build a following from that. Then after the first year, I would look to launch an OnlyFans monetizing, and you can basically count on monetizing 1% to 2% of your followers. 2% would be very good. If you monetize, like get 2% of your followers to subscribe to your page, you're doing really, really, really well, which sounds low, right? That sounds like a low percentage, but in terms of marketing and content creation, that's really good. So you can basically count in your head, like, can I make a living from this? Well, you can gauge, well, if I monetized 1% of my following, which is more realistic, could I survive? And so that's how you can kind of know when to launch, what to launch, and then what content. If you built that big of following doing free content, you know what content does well and what doesn't at that point, because you can look at your historical data of like what post did well, what post did not do well. Okay, this is the content. You'll see common threads of like, I do really well in this space. So I'm going to stick to this. I'm going to go full force into this space, and I'm going to be the best creator in this space, whatever it is, right? Everyone has a niche. It can be as generic or as specific as possible. but you got to know what that
But
is.
yeah, finding that. Yeah.
But I make a lot of money doing OnlyFans, to answer your question.
I was gonna say, okay,
because I
thank
got
you.
good at that. And also I was fortunate enough to get a lot of media coverage because I was the Disney actor that turned
Right.
into porn star. Like that's a big headline.
Yeah, it's a big headline.
Right. And I knew that. And so I leaned into that, and I continue to create content that some of the content that does the best for me, it like in terms of like marketing, promotion content, obviously is me putting my sexual videos out for free in small clips. Those do really well because people like free stuff and they love seeing people fuck. I'm selling sex. I've been selling a lot of things throughout my entire life. Turns out selling sex is the easiest thing I've ever done. It's very fun to sell something that everyone wants already. Yeah, it's really, you have to know what's going to get headlines and use that to your advantage. Yeah, because it's invaluable.
And how do you deal with like the people that do come out, like the haters, or just people that say, "Oh, he's gay," or how do you deal with that? Because I do also have some listeners that feel, question their sexuality if they're interested in anal pleasure, and I just feel like those are two different things. Completely.
They're very different things. You can kind of tell, like, do you look at a hot guy and are like, I really want to have sex with him? That's usually a good get. I don't have that. And I'm definitely at a point where like, that guy's hot. I can tell that's an attractive man. That's great. But the thought of having sex with him, I'm like, no, that just doesn't work for me. But I still love, like, for example, like trans women. Someone was like, there's lots of gay men that look at me having sex with trans women and go like, he's obviously gay. Like, there it is. There's the proof right there. And I have to explain to them like, no, they are women. I am not attracted to trans men, for example. I'm attracted to women, females.
Right, that energy.
That happen to have a dick. And so I like sucking trans women's dicks. And he's like, well, he likes sucking dick. That's it. He's gay. And I trust me, if I was gay in any little bit, and maybe that is gay a little bit, but I don't know. But like, if I was like attracted to men, even a little bit, I would make so much fucking money
by doing it.
That by doing it, I would be insane not to have done it at this point. So I truly know, no, I'm not gay, even though I love sucking dick and getting fucked in my ass. And I still know I'm not gay. So, and there's all these lines that like, people can't tell you what your sexuality is. They don't know. And it doesn't matter what you're into, unless it's specifically that thing of like, I'm attracted to the other sex or I'm attracted to the same sex. And sexuality is not black and white.
Yeah, it's a huge spectrum.
It's a spectrum. There's going to be so many people that fall in between other categories that how do you classify? Okay, I'm only attracted to men in this very specific circumstance and not all of these other kinds of men, but the specific man. Like, how do you classify that? I don't know. I don't have the answers, but I know for a fact that it's not stamped, you're gay no matter what. And also like, okay, if you're a little gay,
who cares?
Who cares?
You are who you are.
You are who you are.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's really cool that you found comfort in who you are, because so many of us are scared to just be who we are. And so I'm grateful for you for coming on and being so vulnerable.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. This has been an absolute blast. And also it's allowed me to explore, because sometimes you think about things in your head but it's different when you actually vocalize it. You actually get more clarity in your thoughts by talking about it. It's been therapeutic almost. I felt like we've been in therapy.
Well, that's good.
This is great.
I love that for us or for you.
I love that for us.
Well, thanks again, Dan. I really appreciate you being here, and
thank you for having me.
Appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
Cheers to anal pleasure.
Cheers to anal pleasure. Let's do it. Let's all dive in. If you've never done it, now's the time. Give it a try.
Thank you.